Great. I'm going to do the audio and video, and hopefully everyone can hear me. I assume someone will tell me if you can't. Thank you, first of all, for that, Alexander. And thank you to the entire coalition of the Tampa Bay Clean Cities. Bollinger Motors is a member of Tampa Bay Clean Cities. We are a member of a handful of clean cities, all of which ones we have looked and reviewed carefully for their just general activities and their hard work in the area. So we're very pleased to present today among the Tampa Bay. Thank you for the invite, and thank you to Ken, a fellow speaker, and all the people for attending today. Great, we can move on to the next slide. So I'm making the assumption that very few, if any, people listening today know much about Bollinger Motors. So we don't always do this, but we are doing the slide here that talks about our original founding. We're 8 years old. Just had our 8-year anniversary about a month ago. And the company, of all places, was founded in upstate New York, because that's where Robert Bollinger lived at the time. And the idea he had was all electric vehicles, and we only make electric vehicles. But it wasn't in the commercial space initially. It was a very capable Class 3 SUV type vehicle and similar. That idea he felt was something very compelling, and ultimately decided when it was very clear that upstate New York was not the place to found an auto company, to move to the Detroit area so he could be close to various resources, suppliers, engineers, all kinds of folks who have auto background. So that was done only a few years ago. And despite this short period of time, we've moved very rapidly to increase our footprint, including obviously commercial vehicles, which actually will be the first vehicles we produce in only a few months, which is hard to believe from our perspective. So we can go to the next slide. And just a quick shot of our shop here. So we are in Oak Park, Michigan. Oak Park is just outside Detroit, and kind of in the center of the whole metro area, so it's very easy to access. It's a great space we're in. We have a very large shop. It's all engineering-centric company, despite the fact that I am not an engineer. And they're all the prototypes and other work to build to get us to this point. We're done in Oak Park. The idea when the company made its shift from the SUV to the commercial was to utilize the knowledge that we had from the SUV work, especially in the area, obviously, of electrification. And we then allowed us to quickly pivot to the commercial side. And we've only been working on the commercial vehicles for a couple years, and gotten to the point where, again, production is scheduled in the spring. The idea behind the commercial vehicles, and I can go to the next slide, has always been, and this I think is very unique to Bollinger. So the idea that while we all know electrification is going to be a challenge, I mean, the idea of moving from gas or diesel to an electric powertrain is not something that's just simple, or you swap one in for the other. I think everyone knows that, but you can make it as easy as possible. The goal at Bollinger in our commercial space for the medium duty 4, 5, and 6 has always been that at the very least to make it so you can upfit it as easily as possible, essentially the same as you can upfit your trucks currently. That is doesn't sound unique, but it is actually unique in this space. And you can see the picture. We love our top-down picture of this vehicle, where it's completely clean frame rails. There's no batteries hanging off it. The batteries are in the middle. We don't have any concerns with any upfits whatsoever. We're agnostic to the upfitters. We don't upfit it ourselves. We don't put boxes on it, whatever. We work with anyone. And the idea is that part of the equation for electrification is just as simple as currently. When you order your vehicle, you upfit it, obviously, in the way you need. We'll work with anyone, and it's very straightforward. You can see the idea of it's a very straightforward design, batteries in the middle. You have an e-axle in the back, as well as dual wheels. And then, of course, most of the componentry of the heavy-duty componentry, some of these slides are a little funky here, but no worries, are underneath the cab itself. So it's very easy to work with, and that is our goal. Again, you're going to have to change some of the things you do as a company and how you do it. It's not necessarily bad. It's the idea of rethinking your business a little bit and hopefully more efficient, but the upfit is exactly the same as you currently have. So we can go to the next slide. And that's just some drawings of some examples. We expect, again, to be able to do anything in class 4, 5, and 6, with the 4 and 5 being much before the class 6 vehicle. And that means box trucks, stake bodies, flatbeds, bucket trucks, those type of things in the environment. So really, again, though, anything you work on now, we can do with any upfitters. So hopefully that is one thing that makes it a little easier on the idea of electrifying, which again has many challenges. So moving to the next slide. So we always like to tell everyone what the specifications are. It's exceptionally important. And again, I'm sorry for the slides are a little funky when the change from my deck to this deck. So no worries. If anyone wants a clean copy, we can send it from our version of it, which doesn't have these overlaps and stuff. All of our commercial vehicles will have 2 batteries. The batteries are stacked to take up as little space as possible, and you can kind of see it underneath there, the bottom one, which is still well above, the componentry. So there's 2 batteries that are stacked in between the frame rails. The range on a class 4 using specifications of 50% payload, which is an SAE norm, is 185 miles. So a very nice range for these batteries. And the idea is that, of course, it's not going to be a long-range over-the-road vehicle in class 4 or 5. That's usually a very urban, suburban type vehicle utilization. Most of our customers, through data and research, or potential customers, have indicated they drive less than 100 miles a day for these vehicles. So, it's any company that looks to electrify should take it in steps. No one's going to swap out their whole fleet one day and go electric. If the idea is the lowest hanging fruit from the way your fleet operates, and you want to get used to the range and all that. We don't want anyone to have a problem. You don't want to run out of power on the side of the road. And so 185 miles is rating. All of our testing, and we're still obviously in the testing mode at this point with production about 9 months away, is that those range is very, very accurate. There's arguments internally that we want to make it bigger, but we really want to be conservative about it because the numbers have been very, very positive. And most of that initial testing came in the cold weather in Michigan in the wintertime. So if it's going to do 185 then, it's going to do that most of the year. Of course, you have the other extreme heat is the other problem as well. So charging, it's a little hard to see there, but on level 2, 1.2 hours at 80 amps, 4.9 hours at 80 amps, my apologies. So a reasonable amount of time. Obviously, most of these vehicles or all of them at some point will come back to some level of depot in the evening and then be charged there. Level 3, which is very challenging to get level 3 chargers, so we're being a little realistic that our initial customers are very unlikely to have that, 1.2 hours only at 200 amps. So our payload on this vehicle is a little over 7,000 pounds that it can carry, with, of course, including the upfit, so for that. And basically, it has specifications very, very similar to a current class 4 diesel or gasoline vehicle. Go to the next slide. Oh, let me change one. I had a different one. Okay, I was going to show you the specs in the Class 5 too. And just to tell you, the Class 5, obviously a bigger vehicle with 11,000 pounds payload, and that still gets 160 on a single charge with the 2 batteries in it. So not bad at all, and should meet most requirements. Not all, but most requirements for a Class 5 vehicle. So Bollinger from the beginning in the commercial space, decided that we were not going to try to, as the saying goes, reinvent the wheel. So it's hard enough to do the change from gas and diesel to electrification. And we have not chosen not to make our own batteries, and we'll talk about that a little later. And we actually work with an assembly partner instead of building our own plant to building. So we work with Roush, who you may or may not have heard of, very well known in the auto industry. They've been around for many, many decades. I don't want to say 100 years, it's not that long, but it's been a very long time. And they do assembly. They do assembly for manufacturers you probably know very well around specialty lower volume vehicles for those manufacturers, which we fit into currently. So they are located in Livonia, Michigan. They are literally 15 minutes down the road from us. So they are assembly partners, and we are currently, or just a few weeks ago started, so currently building design validation vehicles, commonly called DVs. That's the first production at Roush. Those are not saleable vehicles, but they are close, very close to the final product. And of course, they will go through extensive tests and be shown to customers or potential customers. And they can be driven normally, although not legally on public roads. So it has to always be something private. And I'll talk about that a little later. But Roush, great experience, and they are our assembly partner. And go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, we originally Bollinger originally worked on their own batteries. Batteries cost a lot of money to build the technology, to build the plants, etc. So we've chosen to work with One. They go by the name One, even though it's an acronym, Our Next Energy. Our Next Energy is out of Novi, Michigan, so really close to us as well. They are a relatively new company. All their batteries we work with them on are LFP, so lithium iron phosphate, sustainable batteries. There's no nickel, no cobalt in the batteries we utilize. Again, they fit between the frame rails, so they're designed. Our frame rails are designed around those, and they fit perfectly in there, so it's very safe. Lithium iron phosphate, an excellent way to go from battery technology. One is relatively new to as well. Just to give you an idea of how much it costs to just work on batteries, they are building a brand new plant outside Detroit metro airport area, and it is, I believe, $1.4 billion. That's the one plant. So the idea behind technology and batteries is very challenging, why we chose not to work on them. And the idea is, again, to use the best suppliers around. We are very confident of One's abilities, and obviously all the test vehicles have Ones out of a different, smaller facility. The bigger facility comes online late this year, I believe. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So one of the Bollinger way we wanted to work as a company is we made every effort to work within a very tight band for major suppliers around the Detroit area. Now, you can't build everything, you can't utilize everything out of the area and all that. This is an international, global business. That's automotive is in this day and age. But obviously we're just outside Detroit. Roush is just outside Detroit. One is just outside Detroit, all of us. The E-axle for our vehicle is from Dana. Obviously, I imagine most people know about them. They've been around literally almost 100 years in their case. And the tires, which are specialty tires, of course, for e-vehicles, drive differently. They take off really fast, and it's tough on the tread, so you design them differently. Is from Goodyear, which obviously is out of Ohio. So very, very close by. And the Dana axles will be built in Kentucky. So that's not everything, but it's a lot of it. And it's very important that supply chains in this day and age and close by, and being able to, as a new manufacturer, have vendors close by. So we can go to the next slide. So we only build vehicles in 4, 5, and 6 is our current plan. If to build anything outside that, it'll be quite a while. We always note that is the area, anything in 4, 5, 6, anything above class 4 and above, has the federal incentive of 30%, up to 30%, $40,000, 30% of the purchase price, to motivate in the move to medium-duty electric vehicles, which makes incredible sense from an environmental perspective. That is on top of it. That gives the tax credit. States, of course, have certain credits as well. That would be in addition. This is, I believe, everyone qualifies, municipality, anybody, to get this incentive, and it is good through 2032. So it's quite a while. Go to the next slide. So just to kind of sum up where we're at as a company, this is a very simple chart, nothing exciting, but we're class 4s first in the spring of 24. That is currently roughly April. I shouldn't say roughly April. That is the current plan. So far, we have been right on schedule with all major time frames. So we go spring of 24 for the class 4. Very early, 25 is the class 5 vehicle start of production, and then very late 25 is the class 6. Class 4 and 5 are very similar vehicles. Obviously, the class 5 has a higher payload, and it's a little different. Class 6, that's a more of a design challenge, and it's different than the 4 and 5, and obviously even more robust, and that's a little later. So again, we have been right on schedule. This has only been a couple of years to get to this point on the commercial side, utilizing the insights we had from the the light duty side. And again, everything's been on schedule so far. So we are saying, as we say, knock on wood, that we will be there spring 24 with the first class 4 vehicle. You go to the next page. So just to sum up some of the things we have going on, in case anyone's interested in talking to us about some of the things. We have the DV vehicles that I indicate, design validation, can't be driven on public land, but they can be driven on private road by non-Bollinger employees. The government rules is Bollinger employee has to be in it. They don't have to be driving it, so they drive on the passenger side, and anyone can drive on actually drive the vehicle to get a feel for it, which I have to tell you is quite enjoyable to drive. We have a big event in M-City, drive event, which is M-City is what is called a fake city. It has all the amenities of a city, but it's not really one. It has all stop signs, lights, on and off ramps, different road types, things like that. And it was built for autonomous vehicle testing originally. And it still does some of that, but now it does a lot more testing of other things. It's just something you can rent, for lack of a better term. And we have that for 9 days in the middle to late September. And we're going to have folks drive around. If anyone's interested, they're welcome to get in touch with me about that. In the fall of 23, so very soon, we will have DVs available for private events. We are going to be taking them to on the road. Our first actual event that we were taking the DVs to outside of M-City, which is an event we're holding. The actual event is All Wheels up in the Boston area. They work with Clean Cities, and it's actually co-hosted by a couple of different Clean Cities locations, but All Wheels, 20th anniversary. And because they are driving vehicles on private property there, outside of the event location in Norwood, Massachusetts, we will have a vehicle there. It's the first time it'll be taken anywhere off property that we have. So, and again, driven on roads.
Yeah, he has one.
And just to finish up, our PV program starts in early 24, where customers can use those because PVs can be driven. Process validation vehicles, can be driven on public roads. And then to finish up, we will be producing in spring 24, as I said, and deliveries soon after. So hopefully that's interesting about what Bollinger is standing for in the medium-duty electric vehicle market. And I am all set at this point.